Orel's in the whole good book. His name is God Almighty, he can really cook. Go God, go God, go God, go.
So welcome to today's episode of Moralton University. We are interviewing some really awesome people. Justin Yates and Nicholas, is it Kneiper? Kneiper of teamorel.com. You guys want to introduce yourselves?
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Justin.
I'm Nick.
I know this is something that everybody hates doing, but if there's anything about yourselves you want to share.
Sure. My name's Justin. I play music. I run this website with my friend Nick. I enjoy a nice cup of coffee, which I'm having right now.
Nice.
I'm Nick. I'm a college student, and that's really all there is to me. There's not really a whole lot to say.
That's fair.
What are you studying?
Geography.
Huh?
Geography.
Nice.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, cool. It's the first time I've heard someone say that they're studying geography.
Yeah, it's my favorite subject. Figured might as well go into something that I'm really passionate about.
Yeah, and you can make really good money doing that. I used to work at a marine surveying company, and one of our engineers, or one of our surveyors, he had a degree in geography.
Nice.
So the reason we have you guys on today is teamorel.com, which is maybe the most comprehensive source on the show that's out there. I certainly find it to be like really illuminating. It's got all the sources that one could need. And so you both work on this together, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, correct.
So how did you guys first discover Moral Orel?
I stumbled into it. I've been watching late night Cartoon Network. I'm a little bit older than all you guys. I've been around for a while. I used to watch it when Space Ghost was on at like 1 a.m. before it was Adult Swim or really anything. And so I've kind of kept tabs on Adult Swim and Cartoon Network for years. And I caught the show when it first started airing. So I was able to watch it when it was, live week to week.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
That's really cool.
Was there any talk about it online, or was the website that you created like kind of the first like major source for it? I know that was after the fact, but like, was there forums for it?
Nick is a little bit more of our media guru. I kind of send him down the rabbit hole a lot of the times. But from my experience and what I've seen, there's been a bunch of different fan-made sites on different websites over the years, from MySpace accounts to Tumblr pages to blog spots and, little things here or there. But we've never ran into something as detailed as what we're trying to do, which I think, similar to your guys' situation, which I've heard is you've kind of seen a few things out there, and then it kind of motivates you to be like, you know what, I kind of want to do this in a different way. And that's, what kind of propelled us to wanting to do the website, amongst other reasons.
Thanks. You make a really good point there, because we also saw that a lot of the fandom is very like personal focused, where people's personal experiences, they have a character they latch onto, and it's more about the creative side of things, which we both also dabble in the creative side of things, of course. But I feel like both of our projects really dig into the people behind the screen, the writers and their motivations, I guess.
Well, I guess
we
like to discuss it more in an analytical sense, and try to figure out like where people were coming from. It's a deep show, I feel. It's one of those shows that really sticks with you after you've seen it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The show touches on a lot of pretty personal and timeless subject matter, which I think is really awesome. And I don't think can be said the same way about a lot of other Adult Swim shows, which is funny because if you ever, search around the internet and you look at different like people's top 10 lists, you'll always see Moral Orel on like the top 5 or the top 10. And it always stays there even all these years later, because it's kind of in its own special category, which is great. But I can totally understand what you're saying. I know Nick can chime in too. And Nick, if you remember any old school sites, please remind us as well. But yeah, there's a lot of fans and fandoms are very interesting because it is very one-sided, I guess. And for us, like we enjoy it for our own personal reasons. There's no doubt about that. And we relate to it as well too. But I have a background in a lot of different areas. And I think also Nick is interested in a lot of the production side of it too. So though we see a lot of people talking about how they personally enjoy it or how they personally connect with something, that's great. And we have our opinions as well too. I mean, everyone on the internet does, but we were more interested in wanting to kind of dive into the nitty gritty. And that's what kind of some of those things kind of made this idea become a reality. Because a lot of this spawned off of a conversation that I had with David Tuber for another project I was working on. And it just, that general interest amongst other things just started to propel more and more interest into this until then I met Nick, and that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's a great segue into the second question.
So how would you define the Team Orel project and the goals behind it?
Nick, you better chime in or I'm just going to keep talking.
All right, well, I mean, if you want me to answer this one, I can. So pretty much like we started this website to document all the stuff that we were finding relating to the show, like the media, the physical props. Ultimately, I would say it's turned into mainly just preserving the legacy of the show. We also do a side thing where we try to help people with their collections. Like we look out for their items as well, meet up with fans, offer like, I don't know, just start discussions about the show, give back to everyone who also enjoys this show. I don't really know how to word it. Sorry.
No, I think that's really awesome, and I think that's important work in keeping the show alive and keeping the interest in it alive. And I did want to circle back to a point you made about like the timelessness of the show. I think it's interesting how Moral Orel, even though it's like almost like 20 years old at this point, I think today it's more relevant than ever. And especially in this political climate we're in, I think, there's always new things to talk about with it. And that's why I think it's great you guys have this website that can, give people more of a background into the show and help them learn more about it. And I think that helps generate more discussion or more knowledgeable discussion.
Well, we hope that more of that can actually happen. We see a lot of like the cult following on different websites online, but a lot of it is, I think, taken, as you guys pointed out, for a lot of personal reasons. When we try to dive into the meat of the show, because there is a lot there, even to, I don't know, pontificate about, if that's the right word, additional to what the actual meaning was behind the intent of the writing, of the episodes. But you're absolutely right. Like the subject matter is timeless. I don't think domestic abuse was only popular in the 50s or something. You know what I mean? That's going to be something that's going to last for a long time, whether we like it or not. And there are a lot of shows on Adult Swim that are topical. And there's nothing wrong with that. But touching on these points are a lot more human. And those elements are not going to go away. And that goes across the board from drug use to sexuality to all different types of, huge topics that are in the show. But to, chime in on the first question that you guys proposed, there's a couple reasons I think how this website came to fruition. But one thing that motivated me a lot that Nick mentioned was trying to help other people. I collect for a few different shows. I'm like the world's biggest collector of some silly anime that was on Cartoon Network as well, called Outlaw Star. And I used to do a lot of different collecting, and I see online how commerce and art constantly battle one another. I also sell music myself, and it's something that I constantly debate with, and I don't like it. And with Orel, we started to see this. I don't even know if it correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, but it was way before it came on HBO where we started to see items for the show start to get hiked up in prices online. and just get higher and higher. And it was like alarming. And I've seen that happen with other things. And to me, it's frustrating because I think a show like this, the show has a lot of characters that can be heroes for people who aren't represented in a lot of other shows. And that's something that a lot of people can identify with, and it's important. And it really sucks, for lack of a better way of saying it, where some 15, 16-year-old who needs a Stephanie can't have that piece of the show to feel connected with unless they have $600 to buy a DVD or something insane. And that was something that just drove me crazy. I was like, this is nuts. Like, I want people to enjoy the show, and that price hiking ruins it. So we're like, we need to find ways to help people and help get this to them and find other ways to be able to kind of keep this alive more than just posting TikTok videos. Like, we want to do our part to give back to something that is so important to us and is going to be important to other people as well too. And so it's really flattering and very sweet to say that you guys, like the show, or like the website, excuse me, because I mean, that's why we do this. Like, we want to find people who can dig it, and we can kind of share that mutual love and respect,
What you guys are doing and your motivation is so admirable, in part because it's one of the things I feel that people get from the show and get from Orel himself, that everyone has a story, and that story being able to be told is incredibly important.
Yeah, unfortunately, that story is only going to be told if ratings back it, and that kind of stinks, because I think a show like this should have some sort of push behind it. But as you can see, network television want to promote Rick and Morty and other cash cows, which is fine.
Oh, yeah.
Do what you like, and support what you like. That's fine. But we're trying with our little efforts to be able to get something that we love out there, and we think resonates with people in a more profound way. Even as you put it, like, the show affects me. It's impactful, and it's like, yeah, it's not like anything else. I've never seen an episode of Rick and Morty that made me feel that way, which may sound odd or judgmental or pretentious or whatever you want to say, but it's the truth.
I'm just going to say real quick that it doesn't sound judgmental to me at all, because there's this Moral Orel has the perfect balance of reverence and irreverence that makes it funny, but also makes it so memorable. Because like you said, you were looking through a lot of late night cartoons, and you mentioned Space Ghost. So can you imagine like watching the Brack Show and then watching like Alone for the first time? That would be a crazy experience.
Yeah. That's one reason why we have on the website, under the episode breakdown, we have a suggestion on how to watch season 3 in a certain way, because me and Nick both felt that how Orel was, how do I say it, aired on TV, it was just kind of thrown up there, and that's fine for a lot of episodes, as you ladies know, because there is no huge lines of continuity. Like, you could just watch a random episode from episode 1, or a few of them, and you don't need to know anything else, and it's perfectly fine. It's encompassed in that one episode, or encapsulated in that one episode, to a degree. But there's so much of the show that if you just watch certain segments of it, or like if you're watching another show and then you just randomly catch one episode out of season 3, you're going to be like, what is this? What is going on? And it'll be jarring because of the subject matter. But I don't know, we always suggest people to try to watch it in that chronological order, and sit down and try to take it all in at once, because it definitely is a different type of experience when you watch it that way, opposed to just picking up a random episode here or there. And I can understand on how some people are watching an episode of, Children's Hospital, and then The Brock Show, and Aqua Teen Hunger Force, and then they stumble onto, Pleasure. And they're like, wait, what? Like, it's definitely going to be alarming, to say the least.
I forget if we actually did it or if we planned to, but we ourselves wanted to do a chronological watch at some point.
Yeah, we've definitely talked about it.
Mm-hmm. There's a video on YouTube that has the whole show in chronological order, and it's edited so seamlessly. They've got scenes from Sunday cut into the episodes that the scenes are from, which I thought was kind of an inspired way to look at it.
Didn't they forget Satan, though?
No, that was a different video.
Oh, okay. I know one of them did.
Not the chronological one.
Oh, they should have known they're on it.
Have you ever stumbled onto that, Nick?
The video that they're talking about?
Yeah.
Yes, I have. I can't say I watched the entire thing though, but I do know what they're talking about.
Yeah,
Nick,
because it is like 7 hours
It's like,
long.
yeah, it's like the whole series.
oh, wow.
Yeah.
Nick's more of our media guru, so whenever I don't have something right in my forefront, I always kind of be like, "Hey, man, have you seen this? Do you know?"
Mhm.
And he usually knows. Me personally, and I don't know, Nick, you can let us know your experience too. But ever since I stumbled onto this chronological order of season 3, I don't think I've ever watched season 3 the original way in probably like 7 years or something like that. Like I always watch it in this way. So it's weird when I'll put on the DVD or see the episodes in a different order. It always throws me for a loop because I'm so used to watching it broken down like this. I just think the viewing experience is so much better.
Is there any like particular episode or moment that really sticks out to you from you watching it the normal way to watching it chronologically?
Nick, you want to go first?
I mean, I don't really ever watch, like, I've seen it chronologically before, but I don't do it super often. So I'm probably not the best to answer that.
Okay. For me personally, I just think it, I don't know if this will answer your question, but I think once you see nature and then you watch season 3 in the way that it's, that we have it listed out, it just kind of puts the pieces in the right spots, and it makes it, I don't know, just cohesively a better package to kind of unfold the chaos that you just watched at the end of season 2. Instead of just kind of like hopping around, it's I don't know. It always reminds me of watching like Arrested Development season 4 or any like Quentin Tarantino film. Like they don't have to be in this like insane order, but forgive me. You said the question was there a certain episode watching chronological order that did what? I'm sorry.
Like if there, you did answer my question. Just any like episode or moment that really stuck out to you watching it in chronological order as compared to the usual way. But I think that answers it.
Yeah, I don't think there was like one simple or one specific episode. I think it's just watching it in its entirety just kind of made you sit with and understand how everything came to be a little bit better instead of trying to piece it together through 13 episodes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, in that way, it really makes Moral Orel in itself an experience.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot on our channel, and it's just in like personal discussions about how the structure for season 3, the way it hops around in the timeline, and obviously because it got cut short, like it's very kind of strange. Just like tonally, it's a bit strange, and it's a bit hard to keep track of the timeline and how things fit together. So I do think trying to watch it in like the chronological order, or as best that you possibly can, given the way things got kind of messed up, I think that would really improve the viewing experience, just because of those tonal jumps.
I still think at the end of the day, you can still watch it in the way that it was originally aired, and I still think you can get something from it, as most people do. I just just for the record, this isn't our list. We stumbled onto this. I remember seeing this on some Reddit post a long time ago. Nick might be able to chime in if he remembers it from anywhere else, but somebody put this list together, and I remember like, oh, that's interesting, and watching it one time, and I was like, this is way better. Like this is a lot better. And don't get me wrong, it's not like the most complicated scenario that they need to put it in chronological order to make sense. Not really. But like when it's, you guys know, like in that nature episode, when they're surrounding around the bedroom and the talk of Orel and Blaberta about, why'd you marry dad, seeing the certain scenes leading up to that in a chronological way, I think makes the impact of that better. And I think watching it a little bit out of sequence takes away from it. And that's just such a bleak and sad moment to have it shown to you in the best light. I think is makes for the best viewing experience.
Yeah. So, I want to circle back a bit. So can you tell the audience just a bit about the website and the work that you've done to put it together, the work that's gone into it?
Yeah, I make Nick do all the spelling checks, and I force him to write out everything because I'm a bad writer, even though I do that for a job.
Sounds like you've got in your basement.
Where do you think I'm talking from?
I think this would also be a good time for after you answer the question to like go through each tab.
All right. So
what was the question? I'm sorry, I'm just being silly. You said what goes into making the site, or?
yeah, what went into making it? Like, did you have like a plan for it? Did ideas kind of come up as you got more information that you wanted to share?
Oh, jeez. Well, I'll take the torch here, and Nick, by all means, jump in. If you guys think I'm talking too much, let me know. But as far as the site, I mean, as you can see, there's different tabs on the website, so they all kind of came at different times, and we sat down and had a few different meetings on what we wanted the site to be about, and kind of made some rough outlines and things like that. But I think it started to come together once me and Nick kind of crossed paths, and the more that we talked, the more that it was like, yeah, we should do something like this. And I think it just kind of spiraled a little bit more, because when me and Nick met, Nick was working on a different project and so was I, but I think our mutual respect for one another just grew and grew, and then our interest in wanting to do more with the show and wanting to collect independently more became kind of like a partnered pursuit in which we help each other, and it just kind of spiraled from there. But putting the site together was a lot of just outlining things, trying to trim the fat. I know, like, at the top of the website, there's a bunch of different tabs on there. We had some other tabs that were there that came and went and just kind of bounced around a lot of ideas until we felt like, okay, this is the meat and potatoes on what we want to focus on. And we always have room to grow, but this is at least what we wanted to start with. The website's only been around for a little bit over a year, so it's still kind of new in some ways. So hopefully we'll be able to kind of, push it out more and more.
I was actually going to ask when you guys made the website. I thought this was like old. I can't even remember when I first discovered it myself.
Yeah, no. When did we launched it? In like May, right? May 2023 or something like that.
Is that around the time? Sorry, go ahead.
Something like that, yeah. Because I did the David Tuber interview for another podcast, and that was around when COVID started. Because you can see, like, I met him in LA, and we met up, but we're both wearing face masks at the time because there was all these COVID restrictions. Mm-hmm. But then slowly through that and through a bunch of back and forth, then we eventually got it up and running. But it's been up for a little bit, and we're both kind of blown away with how much traction the website itself got. I don't know if it was like 100,000 hits in a year or something like that, but like the website got a lot of attention right when we put it up, which is really great. And it's been able to help us kind of get out there more and connect a little bit more with more people connected with the show, and a heck of a lot of fans, which is exactly what we want. I tell Nick all the time that even if we stop this tomorrow, our level of success was hit months ago. And that's a really awesome thing to do in such a short amount of time.
Exactly. I feel like 2023 was the year that it was kind of having a resurgence, right? If I remember correctly, like Moral Orel.
It was a little older than that, because come to think of it, like, COVID lockdown is just the sort of time where people are sitting down and just watching through an entire show at home. So I wonder if that had something to do with the resurgence. What would you say was like the time when that started to come back?
Sorry, you were saying?
No, go ahead, man.
Oh, I was gonna say it definitely happened after it was put on HBO Max, because I remember when I first saw it back in like 2019, I'd maybe heard about it maybe once, and that was it. I watched it when it was still on Hulu, of all things. That's how I found out about it, and then after COVID hit and it was moved to Max, that's when everyone started talking about it. And I was just super confused because this show that I'd never heard anyone else talk about is suddenly all over the internet.
So the reason it blew up, if I remember correctly, because this is how I stumbled upon it, was that someone had uploaded the Bendy section of Alone to YouTube and it like blew up.
That was one thing. A lot of TikTok posts blew up. Those went viral like crazy. And I think a lot of it was circling around the LGBT communities. I don't know the correct terminology, forgive my ignorance, but like no, a lot of it was circling through a lot of those communities online, and I think that really helped it. And then a lot of younger people in those communities started posting a lot about it too, and I think you guys see and hinted to that earlier in our conversation. A lot of people really identify with a lot of these characters, and I think whether it was HBO Max or just reruns on Cartoon Network, they were able to see it, and that definitely chimes into that timeless thing that we're talking about, because there's not many there's not many characters that a lot of these people can identify with, for better or for worse, if that makes sense.
I mean, well, what makes Moral Orel unique is that, and this is just my opinion, it's willing to kind of go into these areas of, discussing a queer experience that I think a lot of shows are kind of scared to go into, or kind of shy away from doing.
Yeah, and all of us here at Moralton University are queer in some way, and for us, we've had a lot of discussions about how impactful the show's queer representation is, and how honestly, like, sensitive and well done it is for airing when it did. It
was
one of our
ahead
favorite aspects.
Sorry, I was saying it was ahead of its time. Like,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely. When I did the Caroline Lawrence interview, we were speaking about that and how the show could take more extreme liberties at the time because of the medium in which it was. If these were real people talking about this, I don't think the show would have lasted even as long as it did, even though it was cut short anyway. So I think they really made the wise decision going with this type of animation, because they were able to be like, well, it doesn't really matter too much because they're animated, or they're made out of clay. These aren't real people, so we could have them talk about whatever, and standards and practices are a little bit more loose with that. So it definitely came out at a time that oh, we have a video unavailable. What is that? No, it came out at a time that was definitely not as open to some of these conversations. You know what I mean? So that's awesome, but also its medium in which it wanted to come out at definitely was beneficial to getting those things out there.
Yeah, because for a lot of people, like, the subject of queerness, or even queer people, are so like untouchable and unapproachable and they're like, oh, well, I've never met a gay person, or I've never met a trans person, so and so. In a way, this allows them to kind of to take a step into learning about these experiences without going too far into the deep end for their own comfort, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I again, in that Carolyn Lawrence interview, she talks about one of her favorite roles to play was Orel, because of the fact that I could have a character that was smoking crack one episode and then going crazy the next episode, doing this, that, or the other. But it touched on so many different things. I would never have the opportunity to do that outside of this type of character. You know what I mean? So it definitely gives a luxury in that regard to kind of dive into a whole different world that might be stifled by the medium of art or the subject matter at hand.
Yeah.
Okay, so our next question. What moment from the show made you, like, when you were sitting down and watching it, was there any specific moment that really made you think this is something special and this needs to be preserved?
I'm going to throw this to Nick, or else I'm just going to keep talking.
All right. I mean, if you want me to go first. So it actually took me until my second watch through of the show to truly appreciate it. But as I'm sure probably have the same answer as most people, but it was seeing nature that made me want to preserve it. Because at least as what from what I can remember, it was the first time that I truly like sympathized with like a television character, like where I could actually like feel for the characters as real people. And then on top of that, seeing the third season on top of that, like Jesus Christ, seeing the third season as well, fleshing out the characters really solidified the show for me as being something super special with its ability to tell like really thought-provoking stories and not spoon-feeding the audience, letting people fill in the gaps essentially. It's showing, not telling.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you about nature. That's just such a gorgeous episode, and it really does make you feel for the characters. And if you hadn't already up to that point after seeing that, it's like you feel for them so deeply. And the voice acting from Carolyn and Scott is just so good, and it just evokes so much emotion. Really beautiful set of episodes.
For sure.
Yeah, for me, I don't think there was like an actual moment where I was like, I want to start preserving this show. I think it eventually got to that. But as I mentioned, I collect for a bunch of different things. And this was one of the shows that I did collect for. And as I started kind of selling off some of my collection and some things, my interest in this grew. And I think my interest in the show, just wanting to know more and not wanting to just read the internet and take that as gospel and actually want to get to the source. That's what drove me to wanting to speak to David, because he had such a huge hand at the end of the show, and I really wanted to understand more. And I think once pursuing that then got me into like, well, what can I do with my little voice to help give back to something that's been so fruitful to me?
So another thing we wanted to ask was what your process is for finding, collecting, and preserving Moral Orel memorabilia, because we know that's a really important aspect of what you do over at Team Orel, and we were just, wanted to know more about that process.
It's a combination of a lot of stuff. It's a lot of headache, and it's a lot of refreshing the internet. But I, honestly, one of the biggest reasons on why it, I don't know how to word this. When I first met Nick, and Nick is much younger than I am, I was apprehensive to jump onto a job that he was working on because for a number of different reasons. And the more that we spoke about things, the more that I was like, man, this guy who's younger than me is collecting and hunting for things as diligently as I am, and that's pretty rare, because I'm constantly searching and constantly hitting people up, and he's doing the same things too, going to extreme lengths. And I mean, nowadays we're not only searching the internet all the time, but we're talking to past crew members, talking to other collectors, just really turning over every single possible rock that we can to be able to find anything, because a lot of the show has been abandoned or is being hoarded or has been destroyed. But Nick specifically, I mean, he's taken it to a whole different level. Nick, can you tell them the is it the wallet story or the t-shirt story?
I have
I
a
think
few. There's a specific one that you want me to tell, whichever one you prefer.
whichever one that has the drawer story. In the back of the drawer. That's the one that just pops into my head.
Back of the drawer.
Where somebody had it in a drawer that they found. Either way, I mean, any one of these stories will suffice.
I mean, I have a few different ones. I don't know which one you're referencing, but I
We're
got
happy to hear any stories you have.
Yeah.
Well, okay. I think the first big one that I can really remember was the Orel Died for Your Sins shirt. If you've spent any amount of time trying to look for that, you know that thing is almost impossible to find online. So there's an old like journaling website called LiveJournal.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So what I was doing was I just searched for the name of the shirt online. Like I think it was buried somewhere. I don't remember like what result it was, but I kept getting a link to this website called LiveJournal. Like I'd be clicking on it, it would take me to this one person's page, and there was a post that they made from 2009 where they mentioned having bought it. That was the only place online, one of only 2 places online that I found someone mentioning that phrase. So I reached out to them to see if they still had it, and they just so happened to just be sitting on it. It was just sitting in their closet.
Oh wow.
And then
That's
So it's
crazy.
yeah, and then there was like one other person on Facebook that just said they just posted the phrase, nothing else. So I just emailed them on a whim, thinking like, is that what that's referencing? I emailed them. They said that is what it was talking about, but they didn't have it anymore. So almost scored another one there.
so
Anymore.
it's kind of like a internet scavenger hunt at the end of the day, really. Like it seems so difficult to find this stuff. I mean, I've searched, obviously I don't have the expertise of looking for the same stuff, the same level that you guys do, but I poke around. The closest thing I've ever seen to seeing anything from the show was not that long ago when the Young World doll was listed on eBay of all places.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. 2,000 bucks.
Yeah, I don't know where people get these prices. I mean, I get that it's used in the show, but I don't know.
False demand, I guess. It's kind of like a positive. It's like a positive feedback loop. They see that people will pay a ton of money for these items, so they think, hey, maybe I can get a lot of money for this thing too. And then people pay for that, and that's just going to lead to the price increasing.
Just makes it worse. Yeah.
I'll give you guys a couple examples. So like you're absolutely right with like a scavenger hunt type thing, and it's like that online and offline. As I said, I collect for this show called Outlaw Star. There was a pin I was looking for at one point in time, and in a Facebook anime group from like 2006, I found a guy who is living somewhere in Mexico who liked a post about this button, ended up contacting him, got a message 6 months later that says, hey, I'm going back to El Salvador in a couple months. I know it's in my like childhood bedroom closet. I just need to go back there and find it. I'll give you a message once I get back. He ended up finding 2 of them and sending them to me.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. That's so awesome.
Super random. You know, you run into some of this stuff, and then other times we've had stuff literally mailed to our doorstep, which is shocking in itself. So it comes from every single avenue. I mean, I've done trades with people who have props to all different types of stuff. But what I mean, the last topic that you guys were just talking about, me and Nick could talk about for a long time, but I think that's another motivating factor on what we try to do. And a current example of that is, if you guys know the show Severance, which is all the rage right now.
Yes.
People are talking about it, which is a fabulous show. That's a show that I collect for, and I find it really funny. If you look on eBay right now, you'll find some collections of Severance items from a Comic-Con that happened a few years ago. And somebody just listed one up for $500 because one person sold one for like $300 a couple weeks ago. Not more than 2 months before season 2 came out, I had somebody send me a bag of those items for free because they couldn't sell them. But one person can sell it and they think they can make money. Then another person who has it is going to then jump on that bandwagon. And you're seeing greed personified, like right in front of you. You're just like, this is disturbing. And it stinks, because I'll run another Severance page online and somebody will be like, hey, I see you have Lumen brand pretzels. Where can I get one of those? And I said, well, you can go on eBay and buy one for $75.
Oh goodness. Yeah, it's just it's a vicious cycle.
For us,
crazy.
we've done giveaways. I've mailed things to real fans who I know go above and beyond. Or if somebody hits me up and they're like, hey, I really like this, but I'm 15 years old and I don't have money. It's like, send me your address. I'll send you something. You know what I mean? We try to find some way to like give back to these people, because playing into that just nonsense is it's nonsense. And it really stinks, because for example, when we saw that $2,500 puppet go online, you saw a whole bunch of other expensive ones pop online too, and that really stinks because it makes it really hard to preserve things when you need to have, you know, expendable money to the point of buying another car. or
Yeah,
something
no, I
like
mean that's a ridiculously exorbitant price. I didn't even know that more than just the baby oral was even listed.
Well, this might be a good segue. I know we got a bunch of questions, and clearly, like, we could sit here and talk about this for a long time.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I'll try to push it along. But I did send you guys a video of a prop that we got recently, and that was one that floated online that we were able to solidify, which is a whole saga within itself. But yes, it is very rare that these do pop online. I was just talking to, I can't remember which one of you I was talking to on Instagram, but I mean, I've ran into some of these sellers who posted online and they are nutty. So they're far and few in between, and it's some interesting characters. You could say that.
So wait, we were looking at these videos. Is this supposed to be Doey's grandpa, or is it a different zombie?
No, that is Doey's grandpa.
Oh my god.
And this is another reason why I'll sing Nick's praises all day long. If you guys go to the website and you look at the preservation tab, for example, and you go down to paper mouth that we were able to preserve, Nick was able to track down which episode that came from because, and Nick, tell me if I'm right or wrong on this one, because of the shape of the badge. It was that it, or was it?
Yes, it was the hat. It was the one on the hat.
Yeah. So
I think you could also check to see from the material that they use for the skin, because I know that like the older episodes, the material would wrinkle, but for the newer ones, they use like a different silicone.
Yeah, the thing with that is though, is that like in season 3, for example, they switch out the paper mouth models. So like in some episodes, like you see that crest on his hat, it'll be different between episodes, like ever so slightly different.
But to link this back to the Gramps video that we sent over, which hopefully you guys can throw into the video here somewhere so people can, you know, put context to it. You know, Nick is going frame by frame, and me as well too. And sometimes we got to do back and forth a whole bunch to be able to track down which specific episodes these things were used from. And we'll reach out to people from the show that we have contact with, and sometimes they can be helpful. Other times they're like, dude, this was 10 years ago. I do not remember. I'm really sorry. And it's like, hey, it's fine. You know, it's not a problem. We just got to check under every rock before we try to put it online. And there's even stuff on the website that says, hey, we're not professionals, or that's not even the right word. We're not like specialists. We don't know every single answer here, but we're trying to do as much due diligence as we possibly can. And with the Gramps one, that's one that threw us for a loop, because the Gramps came with clothes on it, and we have clothes on the website. You can see it. It's a pair of pants and a shirt, and it threw us for a loop because we weren't sure if it wasn't used on screen, or if it was used on screen, or if it was like a zombie like background character or something. But we ended up analyzing, and again, once you look at the video in detail, like all the cuts on his body, the line on the side of his body, how the skin is torn on his chest, and putting that frame per frame from the first episode to be like, okay, this is exactly him. So it's definitely our oldest preserved puppet to date, which would be from episode 1.
Oh wow. I wonder if, like, because the episode ended with them putting clothes on all the zombies, you know, they might have put some clothes on him with the intent to animate him eating people with clothes on, and they just didn't get around to it.
There is one shot nearing the end of the episode where, and I could be wrong on this, but I believe Orel has like a pair of folded clothes that he's holding, that they're like passing out to people. But I think we like searched frame by frame and they don't match the actual clothes. So we couldn't find exactly what it is, but we know that it came from the same source. So we believe that it was used in the episode, possibly never on screen, but it was used and created for that intent. You know what I mean? So it could have been background stuff that was never used, or possibly to put a zombie in, but the sweater is pretty kind of like tattered and torn. So I would imagine that it would probably be like a zombie who's already a zombie, not like being turned back into a, member of society nearing the end of the episode,
Yeah. I feel like this segues well
yeah,
into our next question. Senna, do you want to ask?
Yeah. So do you guys have a favorite item that you've preserved from the show?
Nick?
Well, if you want me to go first. So in terms of like the physical props, I'm really fond of the Reverend Putty. I hate I hate my boss mug. Although I think part of that is also just like the hell that I went through to be able to find it. And then same with the Oral Die for Your Sin shirt. But in terms of like media and videos, it would have to be the 44 Nights promos.
Yes, yeah, that's a great watch.
Yeah. That took me a little while to track down because I had to find actually Justin, you mind if I go into that story about the 44 Nights promos?
Yes, I mind. Yeah, no, yeah, go for it.
Funnily enough, all three of the things I just mentioned came from the exact same source. So it actually makes a lot of sense to talk about this. So I was browsing Wayback Machine because I was trying to find another one of the Oral Died for Your Sin shirts. I managed to find the listing for it on the Adult Swim shop back from like 2011, I think. There was a specific review left on that page from someone. I tracked them down through Twitter to ask them if they still had it, and they happened to still have it. So we arranged that, and then I think a couple days after that, they asked me if I would also be interested in a mug. I didn't say anything about a mug beforehand. I didn't know they had it. They were just like, "Hey, would you be interested in this as well?" And it happened to be the Reverend Putty mug. And then I was looking through some forums from Bumpworthy. You know what that is? I'm sure you do.
It sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's the place where they host all the Adult Swim bumps. Turns out this person was one of like the main people from Bumpworthy back in the
Holy
day.
shit.
And they made a post talking about how they had uploaded every single one of those promos back when they aired, but it got taken down on YouTube because of like copyright or whatever. This was back in like 2009. So I messaged them again asking if they still had them, and they happened to have every single one on hand. So from the same person, I managed to get all three of these things for y'all.
That's awesome.
Some people are God's favorites.
I need to hit that person up again.
It's interesting because this is a prime example on how, and this has happened a few times through us doing this, where we'll have these lulls where nothing will be going on for a while, and we'll just be kind of searching around or have a few things on our to-do list, and nothing's happening. And then the next week, 5 things pop up out of nowhere, and we're like, whoa, like, where did this come from? And it all just comes showering down. And this has happened a number of times, where it's just kind of like the stars align. And then we'll have, I don't know, sometimes people will go, like I said, above and beyond to be able to help. And then we'll have other times where people will just throw us around the ringer. We have somebody who offered us a very, very rare piece of merchandise who actually lives right down the street from me. And they just disappeared. Never heard from them again.
What? No.
And they came out. They came out.
was-
And they're like, "We want to help, and yeah, we would love to do this. Yeah, you're not even far from us. That'd be great." And then just poof, gone. And
What
like,
Take your
the
ass
item?
down to their house. Knock on their windows. Where's my oral?
if I did have more of a personal connection, I probably would like try to go to their place and just be like, "Hey, what's going on?" But I mean, we've reached out to them probably 10 times over the past 2.5 years, give or take, and just nothing.
Jeez, what was the item?
It was the. I'm gonna get the name of it wrong. It was the physical script from the raped reading that they did.
The live reading?
I thought it was
Oh, wow.
narcissism.
Oh wow.
It's either one of the two. It's either narcissism or
Because I
rape.
think the only physical script we ever found was narcissism.
Okay, then it is that. And I think the story was that this person went to the reading, and at the end of the reading, Dino's like, here you go, and just gave it to her.
Uh,
Oh my God.
As she was like walking off the set. And we had a whole section for it on the website ready to go up, and they just poof gone. We don't know if, like, and obviously, if an emergency happened or they moved away or had second thoughts or whatever, but we never even got a no thank you from it. So it's weird. We run into all different types here. It's interesting.
Man, that's such a cool find. It's too bad that didn't pan out.
I just hope one day they just open up their Facebook and we hear back from them, because that's the kind of luck that we have.
Yeah.
From my side of the pond, though, my favorite items that I've preserved, I really like the Chance of a Lifetime shot that David sent our way. I think that's a really, really cool one. I have that framed in my office. I'm looking at it right now, and that's I don't know. Personally, there's a lot I like about that, but if I had to pick one, it would definitely be the Stephanie dress puppet. That's definitely probably the best thing.
I
Yeah.
can see why. It's such a pretty puppet.
It's out of all of the Stephanies that they made, that one was probably one of the more rare ones, because it was only used in 2 episodes, and in one of the episodes it was used for like a scene, if that. And I've seen a bunch of other Stephanies floating around over the past couple of years, but that's the only one I've ever seen of that, and I was able to get that from someone through a trade. And yeah, that's definitely a cherished one that we have here. And as you can see, you mentioned the type of latex on the arm. You can see she got used a lot in the episode, but she's still intact.
yeah,
Hmm.
she's in great shape.
Yeah.
What did you trade to get her, if you don't mind me asking?
A whole bunch of just other collectible stuff, from like American Dad items to other like Adult Swim,
Ooh.
Cartoon Network items and things like that. And we just did a bunch of back and forth, me and the collector who owned it. And that was one of the pieces that came in a package. And they actually owned a number of props, but they were like, oh, we like what you're doing. We'll be willing to part with a few of them. And this was one of the first props that I was able to solidify outside of the very generous gift that David gave in our interview. But yeah, very, very happy to have that one. It's awesome.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to ask, if it's not too big of a detour, what are some of the other shows that you collect for, besides the Outlaw anime?
I used to collect a bunch of Aqua Teen Hunger Force stuff. I still have like the world's biggest apparel collection of theirs, but that's going, and most of that collection is going to a friend and a collector who's in Florida right now. I've collected for Space Ghost. Severance is one that I've been into recently, but that's really difficult. But I mean, I've got stuff here from Buff Monster to My Name is Earl to
Nice.
I have American Dad. I got a bunch of vintage like apparel and just a bunch of goofy stuff here.
That's so cool.
With
So-
you, sorry, go ahead.
Well, so on the topic of puppets, and I might just end up cutting this out, but I'm kind of curious about it. So I've been to the Center for Puppetry Arts in Atlanta, and it is like right by the Adult Swim building. Like, it is not far from there. And it is crazy to me that they don't have any of the stuff from the show, considering like the scope of the project and just how many puppets had to be made for it.
Hmm.
So it's always been kind of weird to me. What do you think? Why is it so poorly preserved in that sense? Like, where is it all?
As far as Moral Orel is concerned,
Yeah.
well, we learned from the end of the David Tuber episode that when they canceled the show, they were like, "You're done. That's it." And they were like throwing away set pieces, and they were just like, "Get it out of here." And that was it. And Dino came in and was basically like, "Everyone stop what you're doing. Stop doing this." And we know, and Nick can attest to this, that I think a lot of the pieces that they had, like on our preservation page, you can see one of the props that Nick owns, which is a hand. I know that they gave out certain limbs and certain pieces to staff members, crew members, and things like that. So some of it was given to people who are a part of the show. I know that they gave it to different people who help financially fund some things with the show. I know that Dino kept a bunch and certain people kept a bunch, who are related with the show. But some of it just, I believe, was just discarded. And as far as, certain set pieces, I'm pretty sure that most of those were discarded. I know one person who I still think he has the hardware store. I need to touch base with him again, but I'm pretty sure he has the exterior of the hardware.
No hammers.
No hammers hardware.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And then I don't quote me on this, but I believe so David Tuber owned Orel's house, and he had that in storage for a while. But then I'm pretty sure that he donated that back to Starburns, so they could display that with some of the display things that they have. But Starburns recently closed, and they put everything on a semi and sent it to New York. And I'm not sure what their plans are in the future, but I imagine that those will all be displayed there, because they do have like a small little display thing. But this is just my opinion here. Why doesn't that Museum of Puppetry have something for Moral Orel? Probably because they don't care, I would imagine, is the case. Because it's not Gumby, it's not humongous, it's not Lamb Chop, it's not enter puppetry thing here. As popular as the show is online, and as much as all of us are huge fans of it, it's not that popular. So I don't think it's anything that they're like jumping for joy, and maybe they would be for it. But it always raises the question of like who is willing to take it there, who's willing to put it there. And I don't believe that Cartoon Network or the people near there, they care. I don't think they have a museum or anything. I know at one point in time they had a movie theater. I know that because I have one of the posters from that movie theater, but that shut down, and now the whole headquarters, I believe, are shut down now.
It is kind of weird because like whenever you go there, you see that there's puppets donated, not just by private individuals, but also by like the companies that produce these things. But like, for Time Warner or whatever the conglomerate it is now, Turner, for them not to care at all, and for everything to just end up scattered like that, and it's just kind of crazy to me because so much of work was put into this, and it's worth preserving.
Yeah. And
I mean,
actually,
I totally agree with you guys. It just, unfortunately, at the end of the day, even if the crew thinks that it is these are all property of someone and they own them. So as much as someone cares, they can't leave with it. And that's really up to the discretion of other people. And as I keep mentioning, I collect a lot of things. Like I see people in LA all the time picking up storage units and flipping the items in there. And I can't tell you the amount of like Hollywood memorabilia that you would be like, why isn't this preserved? Why isn't this something? It's like, well, because it was some producers that he just put in a storage unit and then eventually died. And that's, that's where it goes. And I agree. I think it's a tragedy. I think that this is a huge stop motion thing that should be preserved, especially because this is the building blocks that a lot of other shows were able to grow from I always pronounce it wrong. I can't say it. What's the other production Starburns did, Nick?
Anomalisa.
Yeah, to eventually going up to Pinocchio. You know what I mean? To being in Severance this year. Like they've done some crazy things, and it all really, I think, falls back onto one of their biggest productions that they started with, which is this. And I think that a lot of people should preserve it, and it does have that. It should have that legacy preserved, but I just don't. I don't see a lot of people advocating for it.
Didn't Starburns do a lot of episodes from the first season of Rick and Morty?
Yeah, because Starburns was half owned by Dan Harmon. So a lot of the production that was coming out of there, Rick and Morty is like a Dan Harmon production, I believe. So that totally checks out.
So even then, you can kind of see that as another branch in the moral oral tree.
Yeah, I mean it's 6 degrees, kind of separated, but it's interesting. Even though I find it different, though, if we're talking about 6 degrees of something, if you guys do watch Severance, I think it's really, really funny that a show like Moral Orel is connected to a show like Severance. I think there's some interesting and funny parallels there.
I recently got into Severance. I just watched the newest episode last night. It's so good. I love the stop motion sequence from this season.
In that sequence, there's a bit where a character gulps, and let me tell you,
Like, I know what you are. So
something I wanted to ask, this question's a little further down on our list, but I feel like it's relevant, on the topic of preservation. HBO Max recently put out a list of shows that are going to be removed from their streaming service this year, and Moral Orel's on the list. And we were talking about how upsetting that is, because it's the one place you can really watch the show in like high definition, and it's hard to find the show in a lot of places. And we were wondering what your thoughts were on its removal from the only streaming service it's on, and just your thoughts on kind of animated shows being axed like that in general.
Well, I wrote down in my notes, having HBO remove the show will make it harder for newer fans to access the show legally. Since the show was hosted on HBO, we've seen many YouTube links that have had episodes uploaded be removed. As we mentioned in our official merchandise section on the website, finding the DVDs with all the episodes has become a major issue due to rarity and overcharging, as well as the episodes on the DVDs are edited to a certain degree. I think it hurts the show a lot, because as we have all been witness to, it's given it a newer platform that has resonated with a whole new generation of people, for the better, which is great. So I think taking it away is only gonna, hurt more. But I like really good comedy. The cream rises to the top, and you could be a nobody and still get out there. If you're really good and undeniable at what you do, it's gonna stick out. And I think that even if you take away any of this, it's still going to find its way out there. People are still going to find it even after all these years. Because I can name a ton of shows that have been on Adult Swim over many years, and they never get mentioned, ever. No one talks about them. And it's not to say that they're not decent, but I think there's a reason why this one is talked about, and why people will still find ways to find it legally or illegally. Like it's not going to stop it. It just might slow it down for a little bit, but who knows? I mean, as Nick mentioned, he stumbled onto this show on Hulu, and then it came to HBO Max. Who knows what it'll go to next? And since all these corporations are so money hungry, we'll just wait to see who buys the catalog and streams it next. Maybe it'll be on Crackle or Amazon Prime or whatever
it's on
else.
Gooby or Floopus.
Exactly. It'll be on Tubi or whatever, and people can watch it for free then, or whatever other streaming sites. So who knows? It might be a blessing in disguise at the end of the day.
Yeah.
On a more we have the next few questions we have are a little bit more lighthearted. I got so excited when you mentioned that you're a musician, because this was one of the questions that we added very last minute. Do you guys have any favorite songs from the series?
Nick?
Are you talking about songs specifically made for the
like
show?
the homosexual hop?
I'm pretty fond of Go God Go.
Yes.
That yeah.
Lyrically, that song is just so
It
comedically
just sounds
perfect.
really,
I love it.
Sounds nice.
Really great little Beach Boys homage.
Yeah.
Are you aware of the alternate version of it?
Yes.
Yeah. You can only hear on the soundtrack.
Yeah, I managed to find the soundtrack. Someone had re-uploaded it somewhere, so I have that backed up.
What changes between the two versions? Because I haven't heard
It's my favorite lyric from the one on the soundtrack is instead of saying, I don't remember what line it replaces, but it says he's parting the traffic, he's parting the seas, and that part always gets
That's the
me.
only thing they changed.
It's the main lyrical, besides that it's the same.
Mark Rivers does this a bit, because he also he makes a lot of songs for the show Big Mouth. And I usually like to watch the songs on YouTube, because there's funny things happening in the scene. But when I do listen to them on Spotify, because some aren't on YouTube, I'll be like, wait, there's a whole section of this song changed.
that might also be down to an editing thing as well too. Like there might be a longer version of the song, and then once the episode comes on, they'll trim it down, or they'll have alternate versions and things like that that I've seen. Not to say that that's what's happening,
Yeah.
just throw it into conversation, you know.
The
Um,
alternate version of Homosexual Hop doesn't have an accent.
Oh, really?
Interesting.
I feel like the accent like is such an important part.
For me, any songs, I mean, I'm a fan of a lot of the artists that are on that are used that are actual bands that have made music on the show. But I mean, there's so many little jingles that Rivers does that are very enjoyable. But if I had to get push come to shove because I'm a metalhead, I'll just go with the obvious, which is Bow Down.
Love that one.
Makes me really wish we got that emo oral arc.
Yeah.
Something we were trying to do recently, because people will ask us if they ask us for certain merchandise all the time, and it's like there's only it's pretty scarce, but we try to find what we can, and other people have asked us to like make our own merch or print off shirts, and it's like, well, we don't own these things, so we're not trying to get anybody in trouble or profit off of whatever. That's not the point of this. We actually spend money to make this happen. That's our contributions back to this. But we have thrown around the idea of trying to find a way and get permission to make a multiple Godgasm t-shirt, because I think that would be a really
That would be
cool.
That would be so great.
That'd be
Logo
great.
would be the first one or the one that they replaced it with.
I think we were throwing around just the poster design.
Yeah, there were two of them, because they had an actual Leviathan cross in the original poster, and I think they had to change it because it was an actual satanic symbol.
Oh yeah, and then they changed it to like the skull. I'm trying to.
Yeah,
the skull and the
skull,
cross.
Yeah,
Skull and a cross, and then the other one. I don't remember which one we threw around. I know I was like messing with one of them in Photoshop, and it was like we can never get like the clearest thing. So I don't know. Maybe we'll talk to somebody who can help us just redesign it and make our own knockoff version or something one day.
I do like a vector.
There you go.
A vector upgrade of it.
That'd be cool.
Should we move on to the next question?
right. So what's it like interviewing the cast and crew members? How do you get into that? Like, spill.
What is it like? For some people, it's like pulling teeth, which I've tried to jump through hoops to be able to get things done, and just getting contacted back is asking the world, apparently. But that's just me just complaining. But as far as the interviews that we've done so far, it's been amazing. Everyone has been super cool. Rob has been extremely helpful and very friendly, and just super helpful in trying to really dive into the nitty-gritty about really the production and how the props are made and how they were taken care of. And I've even called him in the future and just talked just one-on-one about different things. Like we just had another puppet show up that had some issues with one of his eyes, and he's like, let me walk you through how we made the eyes. You can remake them at your house. He's like, you need these, you need this, and this is how we did the exact same thing. And he's always going above and beyond to be helpful. David is the man. I can't say enough good things about him. He has been extremely helpful to our site and just awesome. And if you guys don't know who he is, like maybe we can get you guys to put some links to some of his stuff online, because he makes his own kind of shorts. He does all different types of stuff. The guy is insanely talented and really awesome. The interview with Britta went great. She went above and beyond to actually send us a really awesome thing. If you guys haven't seen that interview, you have to watch it, because the video at the end of the video was like a special treat that she sent to us. And it is an awesome behind the scenes kind of like home video that she took that's never been online before. And it's great. I can't say enough awesome things about chatting with her. And the same thing goes for Carolyn. Our conversation was really great. It was very, very interesting, to say the least. I didn't think that we would actually hit so many relatable topics, but it was great. Some people, it's been really easy to get in contact with them. I'll just reach out and talk to them, and it's no big deal. Other people have to go through management and agents, and kind of go through the whole rigmarole of all of that. But I've been working in this industry for a while and working with quote unquote A-list actors and celebrities for some time, so I'm used to kind of going through certain channels. So I don't mind doing that, but I mean, we've had some times where it's as simple as an email, and then other times where we need to wait 7 months to get hit back, and then jump through certain hoops, have questions analyzed beforehand, et cetera, et cetera. So, we go through all of it.
We have a very fond appreciation of Britta here.
Oh, Senna loves Britta.
Oh, you got to put me on the spot like that? Yeah.
Well, you could say that her love for Britta is truly outrageous.
Oh my god.
Yeah, she's a very interesting individual. She's super talented. She's very, very sweet. It was really fun talking with her because you could tell that she has been focused on music for a while. So
Oh yeah, her music is fantastic.
absolutely. And it was cool because asking her some of these questions was almost like relighting a flame that's not like she has forgotten about or hasn't been lit for a while, but it was something that you could tell that she hasn't been focusing on it all the time, which is great. It's as an artist, you want to be able to kind of keep things moving, and having her talk about a lot of these things was a great, I don't know, roll down memory lane, you could say.
Yeah.
Excuse me, stroll down memory lane. I just said roll.
So another thing we were curious about is what episode of the show do you feel best represents the core messages of Moral Orel?
Here, Nick, you answer this. I got to step away from the mic for 2 seconds. I'll be right back.
So I personally think like there's like, at least in my mind, there were two main takeaways from the show for me. Like, one is seeing that like authority figures are also fallible. They're not all perfect like the youth in Moralton are taught to believe. Mm-hmm. So in that regard, definitely nature with Orel seeing Clay just shatter into this pathetic person. And then another one that I thought of was remaining optimistic and hopeful and keeping your faith in a world that constantly tries to tear you down. And then I had to think about an episode that really like hammers that topic in. The one that kept coming to my mind for some reason is love. Because obviously, Orel's super happy to have this dog, and then the townspeople are pissed off at him because he loves him more than God, so they got to kill him. But even after all that, Orel still remains hopeful.
Yeah. For Bartholomew.
It's so meaningful. I feel like the aspect for Orel, especially of him keeping his faith, is something that I don't know how to word this properly, because obviously it makes sense why it's something that people would struggle with. I feel like it's a kind of underrated aspect of Orel's journey, because a lot of people who come into the show, they're more so people who have like deconstructed and stepped away from their faith, which is a great personal journey. It's just not what Orel's going through.
Right.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about faith and how people use their faith to approach the world, and we try. I mean, I'm not particularly religious. I don't think you are either, Senna or Wes, and we really actively try to not talk down on Christianity or faith or anything, despite the fact that we don't really have any close connection to it. We really try to see faith, for what it can be, and look at the positive aspects of it and how it does, it is a positive thing for Orel, and why it's so important that he is able to keep his faith. So we've had a few people in our comments who are like, Christianity is evil, like, it's bad, like, I think Orel's, shouldn't be a Christian or whatever when he grows up. And it's like, I don't, yeah, it can be used for bad things, but I don't think it's necessarily, the case for everyone. A lot of people, have, good faith Christianity, and I think it's really important the show approaches that.
Yeah, well, that's like the other main point of the show. It never specifically talks down on Christianity. It doesn't portray it as this negative thing. It portrays the people that follow it and use it to do whatever they want, and they use it as an excuse to be horrible people. That's what the show is trying to talk about. That's not actually like saying the religion itself is bad. It's the people that use it to get what they want.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I
That's
think
such a
it's
relevant message.
I think it's the screenshot that we have as their profile picture or something of Orel holding the Bible. In that scene, the whole joke is like, something that gets misinterpreted or misconstrued or misused. That joke in and of itself implies that they don't necessarily believe that the Bible itself or Christianity itself is rotten from its foundation,
Right.
Yeah. It's the way people use it and weaponize it against others and kind of corrupt it. And I really love that that's such a core message of the show, because, when we were earlier talking about the timelessness of Moral Orel, it's, that's such a relevant message today, with this kind of rise of Christian conservatism and, using Christianity and God to justify taking people's rights. I think, Moral Orel is more relevant than ever. And it's got so many messages that I think would be important for people to see. So it's a shame it's not more popular.
It's, kind of surprising in a way that the show that, it has a lot to say about the pitfalls of like the culture of religion, not necessarily just Protestantism, but I didn't grow up Christian, but I did find that aspects of Moralton really did kind of mirror a lot of the aspects of the religion that I grew up with. So it's not really just a Christian thing. But it treats it with a lot of compassion in a way that a lot of shows that you'll see on Adult Swim or HBO or wherever, that they don't treat religion with as much compassion as the way that Moral Orel does.
Do we want to wait for him to come back so we can get his answer on the question?
Right.
I've been here the whole time.
Oh, hello.
I did that to
Wow,
Senna
you
too.
didn't say anything.
Hilarious.
Left me
Like,
to the
finally, we
dawn.
got him talking. I don't want to ruin it.
That's funny. No, I get what you're saying, and I totally agree. I think faith is a thing that everyone can benefit from, but it's been a constant problem that it's people that are the issue there. I actually read something recently called The Last Messiah. If you guys want a good read, look that up online. Talks about how human consciousness is the problem, that faith is actually needed in some ways. But regardless, what episode do I think like encapsulate the entire core message? And I don't know. I think the safe answer is nature. I think that kind of covers a lot of bases with the show. But there's a lot of different episodes that I think touch down on a lot of different things, because it depends on what you're focusing on, because there are so many fruitful topics. You know what I mean? Because there's definitely other, I don't know. I mean, you could say that some of the things in nature could, touch down on repressed sexuality, but there's probably other episodes that might touch down on it a little bit more. While there's some episodes that talk about domestic violence and some that focus on keeping your faith, like Nick was mentioning about the episode Love. So I think it depends on what you're trying to get, but I think the safe answer is nature.
That's a great answer. So this is kind of like in a similar vein, but it's more because we've been asking a lot of specific toughies. I think this is more of a broad, opinion-based question. What's one thing that you would tell people who haven't watched the show yet? I mean, either they're planning to, or they don't plan to, and what's something you tell them?
Ladies first, Nick.
No, I think you should take this one first.
I usually tell people the same thing when they watch the show, which is, give the show a chance. If you're going to watch it, watch all of it. If you watch the first season, just know it's kind of like the fun adventures of Orel, his mishaps.
Strong word.
Yeah, it's more of just, he kind of takes the lessons the wrong way, and every episode is a little silly, so to say. But the more that you watch it, it gets darker, and in the kind of the middle of season 2, it starts to really kind of steer towards, I think, heavy-handedly into the show's deeper subject matter. And I kind of tell them to, make sure you watch all of it, because I think if you just judge it on the first couple episodes, you're really going to miss what the show has to offer. And then I usually tell them, when you get to season 3, my suggestion is to watch it in that chronological order. I think it's the best way to take it in.
Your point about watching the whole show is especially important to us specifically, I think, because we discuss a lot of like episodes that are famously controversial, and not like in the vein of like Alone and Nature, but stuff like
God Chef.
yes, God Chef, or Holy Visage, where people, they avoid them because of their personal boundaries, which is fine. I'm not gonna come into your house and be like, you have to watch the piping bag episode. But I feel like by you kind of deprive yourself of a little bit of the show's message by not engaging with the messages of those episodes.
Yeah, I think you only get like a small kind of taste of what's going on, and they're just trying to be silly in some of these episodes, which is fine. And the show is silly. It's but it's not the whole scope of it. And that's why airing it on TV, when people would just catch an episode here or there, I could see how people are like, oh yeah, I've seen it every once in a while, and it was whatever. And I feel the same way about a lot of different shows online, where it's like, if you don't sit down and actually take in the whole thing, you're not going to really get it. That's like if you watch Arrested Development and you just catch one episode, you're not going to get all like the subtle nuances of the writing and all the inside jokes that are going on. It's just not going to happen. This show has its episodic moments, but its core is spread out throughout most of it. And obviously, something like season 3 is a good example of that. But how about you, Nick? What do you tell people when they ask you?
Well, pretty much the same thing as you, especially with like season 1 is completely different from the other 2 seasons. So don't let it like discourage you from finishing the show. But then also, like, compared to other Adult Swim shows, it's unique in that it's, at least from like the shows I've seen, it's the only one that feels real to me in a sense. Like it feels like yeah, these could be real people.
Yeah, there is an emotional
layer to it.
There is that emotional weight to it and I mentioned something like this in the interview with Carolyn, about how like, it's like, no offense to something like Aqua Teen Hunger Force, but I don't know how much people are feeling the gravity when, Master Shake dies at the end of an episode. I don't know if that's going to be as impactful as the emotional connection that they feel for these characters. There's a lot more of that human element baked into it. And again, I don't think you're going to feel that unless you give the show a chance. If you just watch God Chef, and that's it, it'll hold the same emotional weight, which is, I think, a disservice to the show in its entirety.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring this up before, because when you've mentioned Aqua Teen Hunger Force, if in the description, I believe he has a website of some kind, or like a GoFundMe maybe, but if we can put some links, if I can find them, because people don't talk about this a lot, but Carey Means especially was really fucked over after Aqua Teen. He was like, I believe he got sick in some way, but he was like really fucked over because I think it's like the voice actors didn't get royalties or anything. He's just been having a really hard time.
I have an interview up with Dana Snyder where we talk about that a little bit, and I don't exactly know the insides and outsides of that. I do know that he's had opportunities to be able to negotiate his contract over time, and I've heard that he's had some health issues and financial issues, and hopefully he's able to work that out. But I don't know the ins and ends about what his contracts have been and how that pertains to him financially, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So we do have one more question on there. It's a pretty lighthearted one. Just who are both of y'all's favorite characters?
My favorite character is probably Orel and Stephanie. Orel's kind of the hero, and I I like David Tuber's description of Stephanie, which is that she's the voice of reason. And I think that the more that I do my own work on myself, the more that I relate with what Stephanie stood for Oral. And yeah, I think all things considered, those would be my two favorite.
Yeah, for me, I know again it's a very common answer, but Oral, but then also Reverend Putty, for different reasons. Like I really admire Oral for his optimism. I really wish I could be as optimistic as him. So I kind of like, in a sense, I do kind of look up to him in that regard. But then also Reverend Putty, also like his pessimism, I relate with that as well. Because if you know me in real life, I'm not like the most optimistic person. But also like his loneliness and stuff, I kind of relate to that as well. And he's like, I also just find him really funny.
I do have to ask because this is something we've talked about on our videos before. What's your opinion on the legions of women online that are very attracted to Reverend Putty?
No comment.
That's
I mean,
fair.
hey, like, I'm not here to shame.
That's
Yeah,
fair.
I think people have interest in all different types of ways. I do think it's very interesting, to say the least. I know you guys have probably seen the bedroom photo, which is
Yeah.
pretty intense. But I mean, I'm sitting in an office right now where there's a whole bunch of different toys and a whole bunch of different things, so I can't really, comment too much. But it is a little bit interesting on how many people take away from the show for their own gratification rather than celebrating the show on its own merits. If I'm wording that correctly,
Yeah,
it is
I
a
think
little.
there's a lot of
that's kind of
Oh,
what I was trying
sorry.
to say earlier. You got it perfectly.
Yeah, there's a lot of surface level, I don't know, projection, something going about with some of the people that maybe catch the show once or twice, or they just see it in passing.
Well, that's something I run into a lot, and as I think me as an individual and like the music I write and how I feel about things, my own issues, which are highly documented on the internet. I love how people use the word love, and it's very flippant, if that's the correct term. And a lot of these people really do love this show, but they only kind of love it in a one way sort of way. They only love it in a way that amplifies what they're focused on, and that's fine. You know what I mean? Like, more power to you, and I'm glad that you can get something out of the show. But it does lead to some of these people that I think you're referring to, which is a little interesting. And I think we can all sit back and say that Moral Orel has some very interesting fans, but it's what's the phrase? It's par for the course. I mean, the show talks about some very interesting subject matters that are going to resonate with some very interesting individuals. You know what I mean? So it makes a lot of sense, for better or for worse.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that was our last question.
It was.
Yeah.
This is awesome. It was such a fun opportunity, and it was really great to hear you talk about your guys' motivations for running the site. I just find it so admirable how much work you both put into community building. I was really touched when you mentioned how you provide for younger some stuff for some younger fans who wouldn't be able to get access to this kind of thing.
Yeah, that's really awesome.
Because you're helping the community to really grow, not just in a literal sense, but that younger fan is going to remember that act of kindness, and they're going to gain a respect for this object that was part of something so much bigger than themselves. And I think that's a lesson that a lot of younger children, people in the fan, I mean, children shouldn't really be watching the show in the first place, but for the ones that are, it's a way for us as adults to kind of do something good by them.
Well, number one, if you guys have any other questions, like, we can hang out and talk as long as you guys want. I'm obviously not short of talking. Number two, just let me fill my coffee. Number three, that's really nice of you to say. And honestly, if it does stick with people, cool. that's not our expectation, and usually 9 times out of 10 it doesn't. People move on, people forget, people don't care a lot of the time, but that's not why we want to do it. Like it sounds weird, but to us it seems like the quote right thing to do. You know what I'm saying? That seems right. Like this person should be able to have this. They, if we find somebody that's really into something, and I do that with a lot of the stuff that I have. I'll have certain items from a collection, or somebody's has a favorite band of something. If I have one of their t-shirts or something, it's like, no, you're the fan. You're the one that this should go to. You know what I mean? That's the right thing to do. You should get it to the right person. And people have done that to us too. If you look in the preservation tab, we had a insane generous donation to the team of a couple puppets, and I've been sworn to secrecy on where they came from, but the person basically said, like, when we saw your site, we were blown away, and like, you're the person who should have this. Like, you're going to do this, the service that it needs. And it's like, that's awesome. Like, you understand what we're trying to do here, but also kind of share those same similarities. And as far as, putting stuff together on the site and working on it, I mean, again, that's extremely sweet of you guys to say, and I'm glad that you enjoy it and get something from it. And if you ever stumble onto anything, like, help us out and send it our way. But I've got to put a lot of attention on Nick for a lot of this stuff, because as much as I might be heading the team in some departments, he's doing a lot of the back end work, and I annoy the crap out of him with so many different things all the time, and he goes above and beyond to find it, and his due diligence should be recognized a lot. And as you can see, I mean, you can see a picture of him on the Meet the Team page. I drew a picture of him because he didn't send me a picture, but he's on there. But yeah, no, he is a huge part of this website, probably more than me in a lot of different ways, because he is just working above and beyond. And like I post on our Instagram page, he's our media guru guy. He finds a lot of the just a lot of this stuff. So, I have him to thank for a lot of the meat and potatoes of this website.
Yeah, I like the drawing. It looks like Shapey.
Thank you. I told him to submit me a photo. He wouldn't do it. So I'm like, I'm putting this up there. This is you now.
I'm fine with that.
I think it's good. It looks good.
Yeah. Definitely. You got it pretty close.
Even the tagline is Shapey. You can keep up with his antics.
We got to update these photos, though. Our collections have both grown a little bit. In the next little bit, we'll have more to post on the website. We're going to get the grandpa shot up there once this video comes out, and we've got a few other things that are going to be popping up there soon. So stay tuned, because yeah, we got some more fun stuff to share.
I was thinking when we were talking about the people like hoarding stuff, I think it would be awesome if people if there's like a trend of people like sharing the Moral Orel stuff that they have, so people could see what's out there.
Yeah. I mean, the long and short of it is we have reached out to everyone, and we have tried to go above and beyond to try to be able to make connections in many different ways. And some people are more than happy to submit things, whether it's photos or the actual items themselves. Some people are willing to sell things. Other people are just like, no, thank you, and kind of do their own thing. And, that more power to them. But, we definitely try to encourage that as much as we can. We're not trying to, possess every item or something like that. It would be impossible to do that, that's not what motivates us. We want to try to preserve as much as we can and share it with people, because a lot of this stuff just goes away. I mean, even on our official merchandise page, there's items on there that neither one of us own that have just been shared with us that we'll never see. Like, we'll never stumble onto it unless literally somebody dies or somebody is going to be evicted from their house and they're selling everything. We're never going to find it. So just to have it up there to show people is insane. For example, like the Moralton family mouth book, like if we didn't stumble on that, like no one would ever see that. And that's a really cool thing to share with people, because not many people even understand how that side of production even worked. So it's a really cool thing for anyone who wants to know more about the show. You know, it helps a lot because there is no database other than this at this point in time.
So wait, did you guys like find the person who had that, or
the Moralton book, that one specifically? No, I think that one came off of like a Worth Point post or something like that.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, it was for some auction they were doing.
I'm pretty sure though the Orel Crew plaque was one that was sent to us. The hoodie was one that I know that Nick stumbled onto. For example, like the canceled crew T-shirt. Some of those ones that were submitted were that didn't get print were sent to us from David, and they would have never been seen if he never sent it over to us. You know, which is huge. There's all little types of stuff like that, like sprinkled throughout the website. Even down to some stuff that we have found that have been like conceptualized shirts or crew only shirt items like that. So it's cool to be able to obtain some of that stuff just to be able to show people, because some of it is just never going to be found again. Or like Nick said, you know, his favorite item is the Reverend Putty cup. In my experience, most people use that cup, and after about 10 years in the dishwasher, that thing is done. So to even be able to find one, let alone pictures of one, I mean, Nick had somebody reach out and give that to him, basically, you know, like give him that information, I should say. And that I stumbled onto one, probably took 5 years of searching to even find one, and haven't seen one since. And that was a few years ago. Yeah, a mug. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we found both of them like within a week of each other or something like that.
There's another example. Yeah, don't find something for 5 years, and then the week we both find the item. It's like, wait, what? It's very strange.
I like that you guys have one of the little crackhead Orel figurines, because for some reason, like, I don't know what it is. That one's going for like thousands of dollars out there.
Well, it's the Nick found it. It's in the we have it on here. It's you had a 1 in 100 chance of finding one.
Yeah.
So it's one of I think 2 of the super rare ones in that
the mystery ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then
also got the piping Orel next to him, and I found the crackhead to be a little more appealing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know why they think it can go for thousands of bucks. That's absolutely ridiculous. Because the interesting thing is that the other mystery figure, I found some listings for it before. Some of them aren't that expensive.
Oh no, and even back in the day, I have a few of those here, and I've done a few giveaways on Reddit of the God Chef one, because I just got them for so cheap that it's like, I don't care. You know what I mean? I'll give them out to somebody who wants it. Because there's, like, again, a lot of younger audience members out there who don't even have 20, 30 bucks to throw us to something because they don't get an allowance. It just doesn't happen. But the crackhead one, I honestly think it goes back to the conversation we touched on earlier about somebody threw one online for $100, and then somebody bought it. And then somebody else is like, well, they made $100, so I'll list it for $100. And then it just keeps going on. And now, I mean, you'll see one. We've seen one listed as high as like $300, and it's like, wait, what? Like, not only, like, I collect this, and I'll say that it's not worth that much. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's so funny, because out of curiosity, I just, I don't know all the like back end sites to look for this stuff, but I just typed Moral Orel into eBay, and there's someone trying to sell just a shirt. I don't even know what this shirt is exactly. It's the praying one that you guys have in this picture here, but it's in such bad condition. It's all torn up and got holes in it, and they're trying to sell it for $900. Like, what is this?
Okay, hold on. I got to pull this up. So this is one that I stumbled onto a while ago. So the Aquatine apparel collection that I have is like 85 Aquatine shirts. Like, they're all different. It's huge. It's every single one. Like, I went crazy going down a rabbit hole trying to find like every one. And then I had some people like send some to me and et cetera, and it just kind of got out of hand. But there's one shirt online on that seller's page. It was an Aquatine Hunger Force shirt. It had holes in it, torn to shreds. It was selling it for $950. And I'm just like, dude, like, can you work with me at all on this price here? Like, are you serious? And he had it sitting up there for forever. And that's what a lot of people on eBay are like. They're like, I'll just wait for that one person who has disposable income to come along and impulse buy this. And if I don't sell it, fine. But you know, I'm not going to feel bad about it because you didn't have to buy it. And it's like, dude, it takes two to tango. Hiding behind that level of, I don't know, I would say ignorance is ignorant. That's ridiculous. And yeah, $900 for that Oral shirt. If anyone who's listening to this is interested in that shirt, like hit us up and we'll keep our eyes peeled. And if we find one, we'll help you try to track one down for cheaper than that, because that's just ridiculous. Don't buy that shirt.
I'm a collector myself. And I got a laser disc of the film that I collect for, which the laser disc hasn't been a functioning fucking item since maybe like 1985. I don't know. It was $300, and there's only like 2 of them in like available at all, as far as I can see. And the $300 one I got was the cheaper one.
What is the item? Just out of curiosity.
It's not Moral Orel related. I collect for the films Jack Frost and Meat and Killer Snowman, and it's a laser disc. It's in like its original. You know how like DVDs have sleeves? It's kind of like one of those, but huge because it's a laser disc.
I wish Moral Orel was released on Laserdisc. That would be awesome.
I know, right?
I wish I could find the DVDs.
Yeah.
Well, number one, stuff like that to me is hilarious because like laser disc rot is a real thing. So it's like trying to sell that for that much is pretty crazy, especially when it's like to get a working laser disc player that is also going to charge you like an arm and a leg. So that's pretty nuts. But I understand if somebody's like wants to get it. Like I have the whole Outlaw Star collection on Laserdisc, and that's a 12 Laserdisc set.
Holy shit.
Luckily, that's an anime that only 14 people know about, so you know it doesn't cost that much. So it's pretty cool.
That's part of why I was so shocked, because I'm like the only person that I'm aware of that gives this much of a shit about that movie. So like $300.
I mean, I've seen a lot worse for Laserdisc, that's for sure. But that still is a lot. But if you guys are looking for the DVDs, like let us know. Send me a message. I know I've been speaking to one of you guys on Instagram, but like, you know, contact us, and if we stumble onto something, like we're more than happy to try to help people. Obviously, we can't. You know, we have to work within, you know, what people are willing to sell it for. But we have stumbled onto some interesting things that would probably make you turn your head to be like, wait, what? And it happens. It definitely happens. I mean, Nick just sent me a link to a known $300 DVD of another Adult Swim show that was on sale on Marketplace for like $30 a couple weeks ago. It's just what? So it's like
sometimes people don't know what they have, maybe, or they're just I mean, I don't think they should be worth the amount that they're worth. I understand they're rare, and I know with Moral Orel, I think the reasoning is that it was only released in a certain region, like Australia or something, in like the later seasons. But I can't even find it, period.
Yeah, I mean the volumes you can see on the screen right now, the ones on the bottom in Nick's little spread there, volumes 2, 3 in the Complete Lessons collection. Those are all Australian releases, which were never released in America. So they definitely are rare. But and Nick, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we came to the understanding that it's got to be between like 1,000 to 5,000 copies of that DVD that were made. So there are copies out there, but they are limited. The only reason that we speculate that it's that limited is because I press my own music. So I know how a lot of these distribution centers work. And since Mad Men license these things, they make smaller prints of them compared to Adult Swim season 1, where literally there were thousands and thousands of copies of that season 1 DVD out there, which is why you can find them all over the place.
Gotcha.
It's kind of surprising that only Australia, of all places, has the complete series like that, released like that. So does Australia just happen to have like this very passionate community of Moral Orel fans, or was it just like a fluke that they were just able to license things there?
Again, yeah, Nick, go for it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because I think Mad Men had some like licensing deal, not just with Moral Orel, but Adult Swim's entire catalog. That's why they released so many of Adult Swim's shows over in Australia. Like they have a bunch of other ones there that are Australia exclusive, like Minora Team. You can't find that in the US, but that had a complete series release in Australia.
And still to this day, Mad Men still is a gigantic distributor in Australia, which to my humble understanding, Australia really is influenced by American culture a lot. So in their media, they're also influenced a lot. So I think Mad Men, like Nick mentioned, got the licensing from Adult Swim to basically get a whole bunch of these different shows. I don't know if they're constantly printing them out. I don't think that they are, just based on what we've seen, but they were able to do a huge run of different shows. On our merchandise page, you can see some other ones. Like they did a DVD teaser that had an Orel episode on it, as well as just a few other random stuff. But it's all that company Mad Men, who covers Australia and New Zealand distribution from different shows, and they work with different companies as well too, outside of what is it? Is it Warner or Turner or whoever had the license at that
It's
time?
both like
Yeah.
Warner is under
Gotcha.
something like that, or Turner's under Warner. It's
Out
Turner
of-
Broadcasting, but that's a subsidiary of Warner, I think.
I was gonna say, out of curiosity, you guys said someone mentioned that the episodes are edited on the DVD. I was just curious what you mean by that.
See, this is an example on where like I'll forget this minutiae little detail, especially right now. I'm like days away from putting out a new CD, so all I keep thinking about is copyright law. But like this would be an example where somebody would ask me, I'd be like, hold on, let me ask Nick, because Nick will know exactly which episodes, which lines are actually done. He's the guy to go to. So Nick, can you answer that one?
Okay, so they're not edited per se. So like in the US for volume 1, all the episodes are presented uncensored, uncut. However, in Australia, all the episodes that are on the season 1 DVD are their TV broadcast versions. So that's where the edit comes in. It's not the director's cut that you would see in the US. It's the TV version. And then for volume 3, it's also the TV version. However, some episodes have audio errors, so certain sound effects are missing. Like it's not that it's an intentional edit or anything. It just so happens that some of the sound effects were missing. I don't know why it happened or like what was the cause of that, but for some reason certain sounds are gone.
Isn't there like a missing commentary on one of them too, or is that just my memory going bad?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, all right, never mind.
Because it's just the episode commentaries that they did for volume 1. I think they're on the Australian one too. I need to double check that.
I remember for a while, Dino was sending out like burned DVDs to fans because he was so pissed off about that. He was just like, dude, this is not right. Don't buy this. I'll send you a copy. The real episodes. I pretty sure he doesn't do that anymore, but I know at one point in time he was doing that.
That makes me think, like, I wonder if he has like the true unedited copies of each episode. Because I know I was talking to you about this like a month ago. I think there was a line change in passing, but I can't confirm it because we don't have a director's cut version of that.
I'll reach out to him and ask him. But yeah, so those would be the subtle differences that we've ran into, which apparently pissed off Dino in the moment.
Okay, I'd love to know what that line change was for reasons.
I don't even know if it was a line change. It's just the way like that scene was animated. The lip movements don't match up with what's said. So I'm thinking it was changed. Like standards made him change it.
What part of the episode is it?
It's when Arthur is scolding Clay
This is what I'm talking about.
after his mom dies. I think it was right before he said, "You're not even worth it." Like the lip movements don't match up or something like that. I'd have to look for it again, but the lip movements.
Isn't that also the line that they redubbed for Before Laurel when they
Yes.
recast him? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to double check on that, but there was a scene where the lip movements didn't match what was being said. It even like listening closely to it, it even sounded like it was added in later. Like it wasn't part of the original like recording session, if that makes any sense.
Well, that's interesting.
Very
Now
subtle.
I'm gonna have to like dig through the episode later.
This is why Nick is my trusty sidekick right here. This is why I smile and know that I've got a good team with me, because that you're ridiculous, Nick. I love it.
Thank you. I try.
The lip movement doesn't match up, dude. You are a psychopath. I love it.
Like I know, like in season 1, they recycle a lot of animation. Like I know a big example I can think of off the top of my head is in God-fearing. During Reverend Putty's sermon, the lip movements clearly don't match up with what he's saying, but I'm pretty sure that's because they reused animation from previous sermons. But you can't use that excuse in this case because this is the only episode where that scene is present. So that clearly that was made specifically for that scene. So they had to.
I think that's why this it was such a good collaboration idea, because we're also that level of crazy.
Oh, I agree, and I mean that in the nicest way possible. Thank you once again for shouting us out last week. But that's why when I stumbled onto your guys' page, I was like, oh, okay, this is great. Like I stumble onto all different types of fans, but seeing that you guys dig under a bunch of rocks is really awesome, because it's definitely on the same lengths on what we're doing, which hopefully we'll be able to do more stuff in the future. But I also find it awesome. I think you guys mentioned last week too, where somebody was asking if they felt, oh gosh, I can't remember. It was something like, do you feel that this episode could have gone some way? And like your response was, Dino already came out and said it wasn't like that. This is fiction, the end. And I was like, oh my God, I'm really happy to hear you just shoot that down.
Yes.
And just be like that. No, we're not going to go there. And don't get me wrong, it's fine to share opinions, but it's just like some of this show gets analyzed to a point of nauseum. That's just like, dude, like what? Like it's interesting. So I'm glad to see you guys be like, no, like this is what it is. We've put the reason, we know what we're talking about here to a certain degree,
Absolutely, because Moral Orel as a show can be very silly and fun at times, but it always has one foot in reality, and so does our channel.
Yeah, like we like to have fun. We speculate, but we try to keep things, accurate. And, if things are the way they are, then we're going to tell people that we hear all the time about like people sharing like things they think are true for the direction the show is going to go in. Like when we talked about recently was the whole thing with like Stephanie and Bendy. So people thinking that was going to be a thing, and
that became so widespread, and I just could not for the life of me understand where it came from.
Yeah, there's a lot of. Sorry, go ahead, Wes.
A lot of it is just fans kind of making stuff up, and it just circulates.
Yeah, it just gains so much popularity that people think it's canon.
Which is fine. I mean, you've got fan fiction in every single regard, and it's gonna, blow up to a certain degree, and people will pontificate. I mean, we're talking about Severance going to their subreddit, and that's a cesspool of theories going left and right. You know what I mean? Which is fine, and like that's great. That you have conversation about it, and it's great that people are interested still in the show to, hypothesize about what possibly could have been or something. But yeah, some of those theories are just kind of like, dude, they've explained this. Like this is what it was supposed to be. It's not that deep. It talks about deep subject matter, but it doesn't go to these crazy lengths. You know what I mean? Like it is what it is. One of the best examples is like how Dino talks about like, no, I actually had a good childhood.
Yeah.
Like how many people like tear it apart to be like, is Clay Dino? And it's just like, no. And he's mentioned that quite a few times. You know what I'm saying? Like there's more evidence there that he believes he would be Clay.
He said that he relates to aspects of him just because he relates to the character that he wrote. And I feel like a lot of people who write characters can relate to aspects of characters they write without, having to base the character on themselves.
That's one reason why I get along with David a lot. And I really enjoy a lot of the stuff he says, because him writing for Orel, you can tell that there's a lot of him in there. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty interesting. And it's also comforting to know that, because a lot of people, like I said, a lot of people can see him as being the hero, and not a lot of people feel that way or have been in those shoes to have their faith rocked like that. But to see it like that is comforting.
Yeah.
I wish there was more media out there that would touch on that, but I think that there is. I need to go back and watch BoJack, but I know a lot of people have created parallels with that, as well as like F is for Family and a few other shows, you know.
I don't see people talk about F is for Family very often, but it's a great show. It's so awesome to hear that mentioned with the likes of Emma and BoJack.
I do particularly love that one because, in a way, you know, that's Bill Burr being very open and writing about a lot of what his childhood was like, but also sort of relating to his own father figure in a way.
Yeah, for better or for worse. And Bill Burr is an interesting character. Take it or leave it if you like him or not. That's not the point of the conversation. But like, I think F is for Family is another one of those shows where even he came out and said, you know, we had to worry about standards and practices, and we also had to worry about all these, like, you know, all this red tape. And he's like, once we outsourced to doing the animation across seas, and once we decided that it would be animated, we could talk about so much that we wanted to do, and we could actually touch down on some of these things. And you can see some of the parallels in there to Moral Orel, which has to do with domestic violence. It has to do with alcoholism. It has to do with all these same types of topics. And it's ironic that they're both, you know, animated, quote unquote, you know what I mean? But it's good to see that there are other shows that tap into that, because again, I mean, that show is placed in the 1970s. You know what I'm saying? Like, these things are timeless. These are issues that people are going to constantly fall into, for better or for worse, you know?
If we were if we were all here more well versed on BoJack and F is for Family, I would love to at some point like compare and contrast Clay and Arthur with BoJack, and I believe his dad's name is Butterscotch. I forget.
Butterscotch.
Yeah, Butterscotch and Frank and Bill. Like the different father-son relationships, because there's obviously ways that they're different, but they're just so similar at their core. But of course, the personality of each show changes them, and it would just be such an intriguing topic.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to talk about, I mean, I haven't seen F is for Family. I guess I should get on that, but I love BoJack. I think it'd be super interesting to talk about that, get into, you know, the areas where there are parallels, but also talk about the differences between them, because, you know, something we get in our comments a lot is people are like, you know, you can take BoJack and Moral Orel and it's like a 1-to-1, like,
no,
you know, they're exactly alike, and like they're not, they're similar, but they have differences and they touch on different things in different ways, but, you know, they do so in a way that's thought provoking. And
Yeah,
I'm losing my train of thought a little bit, but you know what I'm saying? Like
we don't talk about BoJack very often because people have gotten a little bit salty, but like misunderstanding the times that we have compared like Clay and BoJack, like misunderstanding what we were trying to say.
I like you know, it was one time that, you know, we were talking about like alcoholism in adult animation, and like I do feel that the way it's portrayed with Clay is more realistic than the way it's portrayed with BoJack, because they are presenting BoJack in this kind of fantastic context of being a horse who can drink as much as he wants. And even though it does show like the pitfalls of that and his lifestyle, there's still that fantasy element to it.
Yeah, it's animated. It's kooky. He's a horse. It doesn't matter. Like that.
The way,
But with
Sorry,
Clay, it's scary. It's really sad. It's, you know, it gets to you.
That human element is evident in the show because they are human characters, even though it is still this, you know, clay puppet sort of something. But you're right, like the impact changes even to somebody who believes that Clay's, you know, depiction is horrific. They'll be like, oh, he's just a puppet. Or if somebody sees it in BoJack, it's like, oh, he's a horse. And it's like, I don't think you're really getting it, or you're just looking at it at that surface value. So I could see how some people could make the connection as well as not make the connection at all, or not even be impacted by it, which is kind of the upside and downside of picking these different mediums. But then again, it starts to raise the question, and I'd love if anyone knows other suggestions of live action stuff that you know, plays into the same thing, that isn't just like Shameless or something like that, where it's like, using this medium, they can push the envelope like that. If this was a real people, first off, I want to know who they would cast to play Clay. And second off, I don't think it would be allowed on TV.
Oh,
If
absolutely
you
not.
take that monologue that he says in Nature, I don't think that would make it. And maybe sure on an HBO or something like that, sure. But it's like, it's really dark. It's very bleak and depressing. And I just don't know what executive would be like, yeah, let's throw money at that. Yes. Let's
I
put that
forget-
out there.
Yeah.
That's an artistic choice. That's not entertaining, quote unquote, if you get what I mean.
The
I forget
clo-
which. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say for like live action, the closest thing I can think of that like really that like a show like that has like kind of long like dialogue or monologues that kind of evoke that same emotion for me is when Clay's doing his Rent and Nature's Succession. I think really does a beautiful job showing those kind of generational traumas and abuse and addiction, and just some really absolutely gutting conversations and kind of monologues that the characters give. I think for live action, that's the closest thing for me that really gutted me in the same way as like Clay's Nature breakdown and other scenes in Moral Orel.
I forget what show. I believe it was Avatar: The Last Airbender. But there was one show with a very, very like highly emotional scene where the voice actress has said that she won't watch the episode because in order to get those emotions out of herself, she had to put herself in a dark headspace that she had been in before. And I wonder what it was like the day that Scott was recording those lines in Nature, like what it was like in the recording studio.
Yeah.
What was it? Azula's breakdown?
Yes, I believe so.
Oh yeah, that's heavy.
And in a kids show too. That was wow.
Oh, so one thing I wanted to mention real quick before we move on from it. I think a good way that I'd explain the difference between like BoJack and Clay that I think is what we were trying to get at is that with BoJack, the alcoholism is more set dressing, where with Clay, it's his arc.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think with BoJack, there are things that are more like central to his character. I think for him, I think it's more about how he got into like drugs and alcohol.
Yes,
Whereas for Clay, it's like the way it's impacting him in the timeline of the show. And I think in BoJack, there's a much like I think really the undoing of his character is the way he treats women and his grooming behaviors, misogynistic behaviors, violent behaviors towards women. I think that's his undoing. Whereas alcohol is more of Clay's.
Clay is an alcoholic man, whereas BoJack is a man who happens to be an alcoholic.
With BoJack, the alcoholism does get treated like a joke a lot, particularly with him like blacking out and ending up on Sarah Lynn's yard, and he's got this hobo next to him, and it really is played for laughs. But then it takes it more seriously once he goes to rehab, and that really isn't triggered until he's doing much harder drugs. So yeah, in that sense, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, that was a bit of a tangent, but
Yeah, he knows what we're about.
No, it makes total sense. I got to check out Succession. I have never actually seen that before, so it sounds quite interesting to say the least.
oh, I could go on about it forever. So
I think another
we don't want that to happen here.
just like a quick thing because I don't want to make another tangent. Lauren might agree with me here. I think Yellow Jackets is also a very good show that has a lot of heavy and not often touched upon representations of trauma.
Oh yeah, Yellow Jackets is fantastic. I think especially for addressing traumas that are more specifically faced by women. I think
I was just about to say if you want like a woman-centered show as well, it's very good.
Yeah, and also touches on that addiction element with Natalie. Great show.
Ooh.
Yeah,
We've talked a
definitely.
little bit amongst ourselves about how we think that like because of the way she was designed and stuff like that, that the people working on the show must have really loved Florence. And so I have my delusional thought process is that they just loved her so much that it's like Dino himself have kept the Florences and they're never going to be out there.
Well, we know that she was like, there was a photo circulating of like the dolls set up in this net and hanging from like somewhere in Starburns. So that might be where at least one of the Florences ended up, because I think they remade her like for Sundays as opposed to the original one from the first season.
Do you know what they're talking about, Nick?
Yeah, there's like they have like a net hanging on the ceiling with like a bunch of puppets stuck in it.
Yeah.
Starburns, but there is also another photo of, I believe it's also in Starburns with her and Farmer Phony Crops.
Oh, really?
Huh.
We don't have
I
that on
think
the
so.
site, do we?
I don't think I've seen that one.
I may be misremembering.
Yeah, we'll have to search and like triple check, because I know Starburns had like a drawer full of them and they've hung on to a bunch, and I know that Dino has like people outside of the family as well too. But she is one of those puppets that did get a lot of stage or a lot of screen time, so they made multiple puppets for that exact reason. But it is limited in comparison to somebody like a family member. So who knows, the likelihood of it still being around. I don't know.
Yeah, it's really interesting to me that.
I know that,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
So Dino posted about his brother having some dolls that he brought out for him to play with at one point. It was like Orel from Nesting with his little hat and the cane, and a Christina and the little Clay, and also an adult Clay.
Yep. But that's close to what I was talking about before, where like some of these got just like trickled out to certain people. Like I know people that went to Starburns for certain like screenings with Dino, and Dino was like, yeah, come to the studio, we'll check it out. And as they were leaving, he's like, here's a puppet. Here you go. And just like basically giving them away at some point in time. So it's interesting to say the least.
Delivers babies.
But yeah, no, I know the picture you're talking about, and it's really awesome to actually see a Christina, because I haven't seen one of those at all. Also very interesting to see the young Clay, because again, that's one that got a lot of screen time, but it was only used very minimally. So you would think that it was either kept, lost, broken. I mean, even the ones that are here that are made out of latex, like you can tell that they get a beating. There's no doubt about it. So they can still break down over time. They're a lot better than the season 1 puppets, but they're still not like perfect by any means. I'm trying to load the preservation tab right now, but I'm pretty sure with Miss Bendy, the pictures that I took, you can see like she's in great shape, and she was barely even used, and she still is beaten up. Though.
She was from the Moral Orel production, so she's relatively newer. Still, like her skin looks a lot better than some of those other puppets.
Oh yeah, that's because it's the latex, and it's gonna hold up a lot better. But I'm trying to pull up the photo. Like, look at her. If you pull it up, look at her feet.
Yeah,
yeah, they're like
somebody was chewing on them toes.
Exactly. So I told you that, like, yeah, the latex is better, but it's still susceptible to being messed up a lot. So if that's sat in a storage unit, not controlled,
those would get destroyed. Yeah.
Do you think they might have melted?
They could melt, they could freeze, and possibly crack. Like, I have no idea. Like, there's a bunch of potential like warning signs for it. So who knows? You know what I mean? And you would think, because it was in LA, that if it was in a storage unit, it wouldn't be horrible, or they would pay for a climate controlled thing. But who knows? Who knows?
And it's weird. That's
they kind of look shoe shaped. So I wonder if like the toes that were in that promo like were a separate item. I don't know.
Based on what I've seen, no, I don't think that they were. I actually think. Hold on a second. Let me grab one. I can't reach it with my headphones on. So hold on one second.
Okay.
Do these degrade over time if you don't store them properly? Just
yeah, I think
I would
so.
have to. I would have to think that they have finite shelf life if you're not careful with them.
hold on. I've got weird headphones. Yeah, so what I can tell, like the Stephanie puppet with her shoes, they're like just painted on. And then it looks like the other, like Paper Mouth's boots look like they're almost like a part of his body. Like they look kind of bushy. I don't know if it's the right, like.
No, that's that's the thing with like because I remember Dino saying in one of the commentaries that puppet feet have to be sculpted. So most of the time, because often you're going to see characters in bed with their shoes on, which is a little weird. Because I think at one point, like Danielle is in bed with his shoes on, even though he's not wearing anything except for his underwear. And that's because most of the puppets are made with the shoes connected to their bodies.
Yeah, it's like the armature that's used with these things connects then to these like poles that they use, and on the bottom of the feet you can see these little holes that connect to like the rods that
those are the tie down peg holes.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like they have to be, if they were not a part of it, then they're susceptible to breaking or something like that. So I don't think that they're a loose item. I think they're all connected to the actual puppet. I can't check them all, and some of them are under glass right now, but that's what it looks like. And it looks like it follows suit, because we have a Tommy from Before Oral, and his feet look exactly like Graham's feet from season 1, episode 1. Like they look like they're just part of the puppet.
I thought when we saw the Dottie that KK Dodds had, that it looked like her shoe was coming off. Did I misremember that?
I'd have to look up the image again, but it's possible that because she works in shoes, she might have just like added a shoe to it, and it might not be the exact one, but I'm like speculating. I don't know that to be true. So I don't know, but I'm pulling it up right now, and it does look like her shoe does come off, but you can see on the bottom of her foot, you can still see that circle that's there. So it is possible that maybe some of the puppets did have some removable ones, though you can tell from the pictures on our preservation tab that some of these are just straight up painted on.
It does, I guess, depend what they make them for, because, going back to Satan, I think there were like multiple Danielle puppets in that episode, and, there is one that has bare feet, and that's the one that was used in the shower. But it's just funny how that happens, that like most of the time, like the shoes are painted on.
You can kind of see, if you look at the headless puppet on the site, there's one of the side pictures of his body where you can see the boot on the bottom, and you can see that it's like there's no separation from the leg to the actual boot. It's just the feet are painted black, essentially.
Yeah.
It's also, I don't know if it's super like it doesn't change anything, but there's also the scene where Roberta asks Clay if he's decent, and we see him slip his feet into his slippers.
The other time we see Clay in his pajamas, he's still wearing the shoes, so I guess they dress the puppets based on what's available.
Yeah.
That could be possible. I mean, we saw scenes where it was like we have there's like 10 orals that are made in a row. So it's very possible that they had one that's like, we need, a campfire oral, we need a church oral, we need an outdoor oral, we need this oral, we need 5 of them that look like he's wearing the same thing just in case one of them breaks oral. You know what I mean? So it's very possible that they made different versions. I mean, I can't grab this with my stupid headphones, but I want to look at the differences between the two Stephanies that I have, because to me it looks like both of them have painted on feet, yet the sundress looks like she has the same types of shoes as Dottie has, but I just don't know.
Well, there's never been like an episode where Stephanie is like in her pajamas or at home or anything. So we only ever see her outdoors and with her shoes on. They wouldn't have a reason to make her with shoes that you can take off.
That's a valid point, though. If like the production called for, we need access to feet, so we're going to make a specific puppet that has access to feet, while all the other ones just follow the same kind of protocol sort of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like that. Oral and Shapey wear footy pajamas, so they don't have to show their feet.
That's working smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for doing this with us.
Absolutely.
Both of you.
Yeah, thanks
for having us.
You guys are so well spoken and so clear in your goals. It's so sorry I keep like glazing you. I really admire what you guys do, and I've been really impressed by all your answers.
Yeah, we've really admired what you guys have done. Since we started, and since we met and started doing this channel, you guys have been, just a really cool thing. Like, it's so cool going to look at the website. We've used all the stuff you guys have posted as resources, and it's just so cool what you guys do.
Well, that's great. Like I said before, we've reached our level of success a long time ago. So everything else is just kind of amazing. And to know that we're helping other people help other channels as well, too, that is awesome. And to be able to do something together is great, too. So it's definitely our pleasure as well. I appreciate the plug and the interest. And like I said, don't be strangers. And, if you ever find something that's cool that we haven't stumbled on the site, like by all means, like send it on over. Like we could use all the help we can get. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Have a good night, guys.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you for having us. You guys have a great night. We'll talk to you soon.
Go real far, driving God like a car.